want to first say congratulations. You guys have just shown tremendous endurance because you've been sitting all day here. And I was thinking about all the speakers today and also your professors here, is that the one thing that unifies everybody here is that they're happy doing what they're doing, whether it's climbing K2 or creating a new restaurant that is vegan but not telling anybody about it, and then everything in between. It's something that drives each one of these people, myself included, is that we're doing something that makes us happy. And so much in today's world, we live our lives because somebody else told us that's what's going to make us happy. And here in this forum, we have a chance to really learn to live a life that's yours. That's what's going to make you happy. So this is the title of the talk today, but more the title of my book and also the life. So I thought the best way to explain and give you some ideas about, because a lot of you have already come up and asked me, how did you get to where you did? It doesn't seem right. I thought maybe instead of just talking a straight-on presentation about my work life, I'm going to share with you how I got to where I am. Not because you're going to do that, but just that to show you that wherever you are, you can achieve whatever it is that you want, because you've already got all you need inside of you right now. And what your teachers can do for you is to teach you how to ask questions so that you can do the things that you want to do. So to start off is, you see the little kid with a big bow in her hair? That's me. And I was born in Hong Kong, second child and a second daughter in a very traditional Chinese family. And if you know anything about Chinese families, that's what we in marketing would call very poor positioning. My birth was followed by the birth of 3 younger brothers, which made it much worse. And my mother used to say to me quite frequently that I was a waste of a pregnancy. And you can imagine that was just the beginning. The physical and mental abuse continued. So by age 7, my family decided that maybe it would be better if I went to live someplace else. So they gave me to my aunt and uncle. They lived in a place called Taipo in the country. And because they didn't have any children, and they thought that maybe they would take me on, because with all these, I have to hasten to say that it's not because they were poor. My family had money. It's just they didn't want another girl. So it's very specifically, you're not wanted because you're who you are. So this is not a good way to build self-esteem. This is not what most people go through life saying, I'm so happy that I'm a waste of a pregnancy. This is where I lived, and life was actually a little bit better. Nobody's beating me, and nobody's telling me I was worthless. But I did learn some things, something that we now call child labor. And that's what I did from age 7. We assembled plastic flowers, and we also embroidered these things. And every day when I went to the factory to bring up my big canvas burlap bags of plastic flowers or these fabric, I would pass by the river, which would change color depending on what fabrics they were dyeing, what colors of fabrics they were dyeing. So I was exposed to a lot of life quite quickly. And by age 11, my aunt and uncle had their firstborn child. It was a boy. So I got shipped back to live with my birth parents, back in Kowloon, a very different area. And so, needless to say, this is not building my self-esteem still. But what was happening then is something happened, because I was shipped back to a very nice school. As I said, my family was not poor. We went to a private school, and everybody wore uniforms. You don't know how anybody's personal circumstances was, because they were scholarship children. And one of them, a girl called Rebecca, changed my life. She and her whole family of 5, brother, sister, and her parents, lived in a room. And they shared a kitchen and a bathroom with 2 more families. This is the area they lived in. And this is like one of the places that she shared with 2 more families. This is not her place because they didn't have a little store in front. A lot of them had a store as part of the whole mix. They had 2 stools, and the 3 of kids, which take turns, worked doing their homework, sitting on the stools on the bunk bed they all shared. By the end of the month, most of the time, they did not have enough food to eat. I was filled with outrage. I could not understand why a family with 2 working parents, working full time, could not afford to feed themselves. It was not right, it was not fair, and I was going to do something about it. I was still 11 years old. But I had found my life mission, and this is really what changed my whole life. I now had a life purpose. I have a reason for being. This transformed everything I looked at and everything I did, because now my reference point grew much past myself, much past surviving each day. I had a reason to live. So based on that, by age 11, I already had dealt with gender issues, child labor issues, working conditions, lack of living wages, short-term and short-sighted business thinking, ineffective and demotivating management, environmental degradation, and extreme income imbalance. So I was already understanding everything Sear is talking about, and I was 11 years old. So I think I had a head start on you all from a first-hand perspective. And of course, cultural domination, because I also lived in Hong Kong, and being Chinese was actually a second-class citizen, because I went to a school where they taught us things like Up and Down the Swanee River and Home, Home on the Range. Those were the songs we were singing. I have no idea where Swanee River was, and Home, Home on the Range, there's no range in Hong Kong. So being marginalized, being not enough, became almost like the thing to be, because that's all I knew. Now, what I learned was that hard work pays, right? I was making some money when I was doing those child labor work, not to question authority, because where I lived, what I did was not something under my control. I was just passed around like cabbage. And there's an upper limit to how far a person can rise in life. Now, if I still believe those things, would I be talking to you today? So somewhere in the way, knowing my life purpose transformed my life, and I took charge. I took charge of my life. Not what people outside told me, I took charge because I could see there's a way that life has to be different, because it wasn't working the way it was. So I want to ask you, what are you holding on to now that's changing, keeping you from being all that you can be? You don't have to ask me now. Think about that and come back and say, how do you release that? How do you release that so you can be fully all that your potential is in you to be? So as I talk about, my life mission was my north point and my personal compass, and that can be yours, because it helps you navigate from wherever you are to wherever you need to go. So what I needed to do as 11 years old was I needed to make my life purpose into something concrete. Now, this is before internet. I grew up a long time ago. There was no Google, there was none of this. So what was my reference point? My reference point was National Geographic. And what did I see there? I saw a lot of people in Africa with a lot of problems. So my focus became, I'm going to grow up and go help those people in Africa. I'm going to help them, teach them how to feed themselves and how to run the government. So that became my purpose, translated into some concrete action. So once you have a purpose, you still have to convert that into something actionable. And my actionable point was to do this. Nobody told me I couldn't do that, because everybody told me I couldn't do nothing. So what's the difference between doing nothing and doing everything? No difference. So just think of it that way. Just flip it around. So I didn't finish high school. Halfway through 10th grade, I got early acceptance into college here. So I came to this country by myself, my 2 suitcases and my teddy bear, and to Oregon. Glorious place. But you have to remember who I was. Young kid from Hong Kong, from the tropics. I didn't have the clothes. I'm not used to the weather. I'm not used to open spaces. It was scary. Besides, I didn't drive. I was too young. So it was really an adjustment. But because I have a life purpose, I could do what I needed to do. Because if you have a reason for being, you can really do a lot more than you can ever believe. Just like Rick saying he can climb the mountain because he had a reason for doing it as a purpose, a final goal. So for me, dealing with the rain, dealing with all of that, not having the money, I found a pair of Dr. Scholl's. Some of you may not know that. It was like Birkenstock. Wood bottoms, 1 leather strap. 4 or 5 years of college, the rain would go through, and they never wore out. Because I couldn't buy another pair of shoes. I didn't have the money. And that was what I wore in the rain and the snow. It worked everywhere. It was perfect. Freezing cold, but it was perfect. That's all I could afford. But because I have a purpose, it was okay. I worked full-time, and I went to school full-time. I actually took 24 to 28 hours with special permission because I was so bent on doing everything I wanted to do. I was going to do my undergraduate and graduate as soon as possible so I can get to saving the world. So fast forward to some years later, I got an award for my business and humanitarian work from the Euro-American Women's Council and from the Greek government, which included my face on a Greek stamp. I never thought that would happen. Being in America, you can't be on a stamp until you're dead. So it was not something I dreamed about doing. But my point is, I'm showing some of the things that happened in my life, being in a lot of documentary, inspiring movies, getting, more importantly, being able to change the things that I was talking about, that I believed in when I was a kid, changing the labor laws in apparel manufacturing in all the countries we worked in, getting a human rights award, working with the United Nations on sustainable habitation. These are things that made a difference, but it was not separate from my work. I used my work as a leverage because having a successful business meant that you had a platform to go from to make change. Having a successful business meant you can change the way your business operated and make it that as an example for other businesses. So it's not you do humanitarian work, you do business, or a lot of people say, I'll give away my money after I make a lot. No, today, right now, you can do something. And that's what we are talking about, not way back later, next year, when I make X dollars, when I'm X age, now, today. So didn't actually go to Africa, ended up working a lot in India, Bhutan, actually most every country except except Africa, but I've done work in Africa, but not personally being there. What I think I want to share with some realization that if I can do that, you have to realize that the only limitations you have are the ones you impose on yourself. If I can come from being a waste, being a cabbage, to being CEO of Fortune 100 or 500 companies, to speak and do this, you can do it too. You already have the assets you need to achieve what it is that you want in life right now. All you have to do is to use the tools that you're learning now to forward your dream. And now, leveraging those assets, you can go forward. So I want to give you the four principles. I'm not going to go in a lot of detail because there's so much I want to cover with you. I want to share with you so much. So at the end of the presentation, I'm going to give you a way to access a lot of more information. So these are the 4 principles I've used in my business and my life that I've developed over time. The first one is to tell the truth. Sounds very simple, Also very simple to ignore it. And the person that we tell the least truth to is ourselves. How many times have we told ourselves that we can't do something because of something we fear? How many times do we not admit to ourselves, this is what we really want because we think we can't do it? How many times do we hide from ourselves the truth and the power of who you are? And how many times do we say we don't want to say that because it might hurt somebody else's feeling? I'm not going to go into all the details, but this is really powerful. And making partners is the second one. By the way, this will all be able to be accessed for you later, so you don't have to take notes if you're thinking. Making partners sounds simple, but have you ever said to yourself, or heard people say, by the time I teach them how to do it, I would have done it better myself? But if you only do it yourself, you're never going to get any kind of size. And also, if you are going to make partners, you have to find the commonality. You have to find the reason why people want to support what you're doing. And you have to make a justification that makes sense to do what you need to do. Third one is make big mistakes. As I mentioned to you, I share this with all the companies I work with and all the teams I lead. And they usually look at me and then they say, you don't really mean that. Because don't you rather us make only small mistakes or preferably no mistakes? And I said, absolutely not. Because if you're making no mistakes, that means you're doing the same old, same old. If you're making small mistakes, it means you're careless. But if you're making potentially big mistakes, that means you're taking a risk. You're making change. Something is going to happen that's good out of it because you're going to make the preparation. You're going to make sure that you have contingencies before you think you're going to make a big mistake. And the last one is to die by your sword. And I teach and lecture internationally, and the first time I went to Sumitomo 3M in Japan, I was a little nervous sharing this. I thought, maybe I should change my saying. Actually, they took it pretty well. But my point is, live by your convictions. If you believe in something, stand by them. Of course, you verify, make sure that you're doing what it really is true, but live with your convictions. It's all from my book. Then I want to tell you some specific examples. When I was president of Reebok Apparel and a products and retail group, I still remember being a child laborer and all the issues I talked to you about. I want to go back to all those countries that now we're doing business with and change the way they are working, how much they're getting paid, the conditions they're working under, and all these other things. And this was 1990, a long time ago. Some of you weren't even born yet. But at that time, this was not a popular thing. This was not even within many people's consciousness. And this did not go over well, not only with our factories, did not go over well with my CFO. Because they were all afraid that we're going to be into this thing where we're just going to be so nice to all these people and then we're just going to lose market share because we're not going to make money because our things are too expensive, on and on and on and on. But thankfully, sometimes when you want to die by your own sword, you have to stand up and do what you believe. I also remember what it was like to work under those conditions. And I know there's no way you can make good product. If you're hungry, you can't see well because there's no light. You can't breathe well because all the windows are covered and there's soot everywhere and lint everywhere. And you don't get enough breaks, so you're always waiting for the next time you get to go to the bathroom. You know, I mean, these are things that are basic things that we don't think about the conditions that people work under. And when you work 10, 12, 14 hours a day, you don't do the best work. And when you're only 12 years old, you don't do the best work. So putting all this in place, one factory at a time, from one company, starting with one factory. As I say, we had a big pencil, which means we have big buying power. I can dictate to the factories a little bit more than if I was just a little guy. So I can say, I'm going to commit to taking this production, regardless what comes out, but I want you to pay them this much money, the living wage. I don't want you to hire anybody under a certain age. I want you to have openable windows, real exits, ventilation, lights, food, all the normal things we expect from life that these people weren't getting. And you know what was amazing? Quality went up, delivery was on time or early, morale was good, we didn't have to air freight, everything improved. And by one at a time, we shifted this model to not only the factories in one country, but all the factories in all the countries we worked with. And then we started reaching out to other manufacturers. Manufacturing meaning brands, because frankly, all the brands in America, they don't really make anything. Most of us are just marketers. You do the design, you do the specs, and you ship to some place who's somebody else making the stuff. So the brands that we were talking to started changing the whole world. As you know, it's not a done deal, because didn't we just hear not too long about Bangladesh? How people are being killed because the factories didn't have doors that open and fires would go. So each country, each new wave needs to relearn what we've learned. But at least there's now a platform, there's something to move forward to. And so all of you, as consumers, as well as the new CEOs of all the companies, remember this. What you buy and what you make influence people throughout the world, and it's your responsibility to make it happen. In Aveda, I want to share with you, it's a great story, but I want to tell you a lot of times the good stories are not so easy. We started working with, in Brazil, in the Amazon, this tribe, the Yanawa tribe, and they had given up, actually they didn't give up, they had the land stolen from them by rubber tappers who came in and leveled the rainforest and put up rubber trees, because that was what was the new crop in the 1900s. And so they were displaced and they became rubber tappers because they didn't have anything to do. And then when rubber became less important because synthetics came in, they were again displaced. And because we had, Aveda is all about natural and organic plant and flowers. So we were working already in the area buying natural dyes. We found out that these people, these tribes, had this situation. So we started working with them, trying to bring them back into growing their normal native products. This plant here called Urucum, which is used for lipstick, blush, and all this, and also hair coloring. But I want to tell you, all these nice stories are not as easy as it sounds, because you're dealing with a culture that's been displaced a couple of times. They're not really that happy to embrace another great white hope to come in and help them. So you have to establish a chance and a rapport and trust over time. And then to bring them into doing manufacturing, harvesting at a certain time and shipping it downstream in that humidity, the wastage was many times what we could actually get out of the group. It took years, and then the tribal issues. So when we hear a great story, a hero story, about how we're buying some indigenous tribe, and I'm sure you know that too in your herbal, on your mate. There are challenges that we don't know, and so sometimes the speed with which things can happen is not immediate. It may not even be 5 years, it may be 10 years or 20 years. We started this in 1992. Now, what's it, 20 years later? It's still up and down. Yet it's a great marketing story. But we don't publicize it. Aveda doesn't publicize it. It's on their website, but it's not on the front page because, as some people said last night when we were talking, you don't want to lead with an environmental message. You don't want to lead with that because you still have to have products that work. You don't buy Aveda because they're good to the indigenous people. You don't buy it because it's organic. You don't buy it because it's sustainably grown. You buy it because it works. You buy it because your hair looks great because you're using it, because your skin looks great, because your lipstick is good, or whatever, your body wash is good. That's truly the first reason why you buy products. So having a product that makes sense, that is good, is number one. And all these become like subtle, silent supporters and sellers. And so we can't think of doing something good because it's going to bring you money. You do good first because you need to. It's your duty as a human being. And then it becomes part of your marketing and all these other things as an adjunct. So I just am telling you that, like in the Reebok case, it was a positive all-around, solid sales, positive story. In Aveda, it's good, but it's not a giant success, but it does give you that. So I just want you to know, not every time is it a home run. Sometimes it's a total disappointment. It could be a disaster. Because in one of the years, the tribe had two leaders, factions split up, and all of a sudden they both want to have the project, and we ended up having to work out tribal warfare issues. Nobody told you that in biz school, that you're going to have to go try to mediate a war, with people now with guns instead of just arrows. So it's really challenging. But the point is, you still do it because this is what is right to do. And eventually, it might even be good for your business. And it's just think of it as cost of doing business and being a human being. After Aveda, I started my foundation because I thought I was going to retire. It's really hard to retire, but I keep starting new companies. I thought I was going to retire, started my foundation, and then ideas came. And the idea was that why don't we offer a conscious consumer portal? This is 1999. This is right before Google was just coming out, and a lot of people were conscious now and interested in about how to access all the things that everybody in here, Sears, want to have. We call them conscious consumers. So we developed a web portal. And before we launched it, we sold it to Gaiam. I think a lot of you might know Gaiam. It's a conscious consumer company. They also have audios and videos as well as products, sustainable products. So we sold the portal to Gaiam, and I thought I was going to retire again. And then the next thing, I keep thinking I'm going to retire. It doesn't seem to happen so well. I'm a failure at that. And then the next thing I did was, I remember the other part of me, now that I've done the environmental thing, I've done the conscious consumer thing, the one thing that I really haven't done enough of in my passion, my life purpose, was how do I make it the next level of help to all the factories around the world? Because most of them, I should say all of them, are captive by some brand or several brands. When a Walmart comes in, when a Macy's comes in, and they say, we want to make this product, we want it at this price, they're going to just fall over themselves trying to do that because they don't have a choice, because the buying power is so big with these people. And once you've built up your production capacity for them, if they walk away, you go out of business. So even though there's supposedly negotiation, there's really no good negotiation. It's really mostly one way. So my vision was, let's have an open supply chain platform on the web so that people can source globally as well as factories can bid globally, so they're not held hostage by each manufacturer, each brand they're working with. Consequently, fast turn. The first company that could use a supply chain was size, color, and quantity, more SKUs. We raised, in less than 2 years, we grew to 200 and something people, most of them tech people. And then so my partner and I decided we should maybe check the market and see what kind of funding we can get. This is right after the crash in 2003. So we went on the road, each with our little PowerPoint, and in 50 days, we raised $160 million. So we decided, I think we better take this money in now, because So we did. So I thought we could just really build this platform big and then really go after the. We had VF and a lot of the large companies interested in buying this product. And everybody was receptive. But here's the twist. And this is where life don't happen the way you expect them to. The twist was that they want our supply chain platform, but they want it closed. They just want to work with their factories and dictate the terms. So it's just the reverse of what I wanted. But now, I'm a small guy because all this money came in. And they were dictating the terms. They were saying, we want to go with these guys because they're going to write and commit to our product if we make them private supply chain model. So I had to leave. I had to leave a company that I envisioned. So die by your own sword. If you really believe it, you have to leave what you built when it's not serving you anymore. To give you an update on this, the company hired the vice president of supply chain from Oracle. They did a lot of things wrong, and it's now no more. But the company that has sort of taken this place, you heard Alibaba Wholesale? They don't have the whole supply chain that we built, but that concept is valid, and it could have worked if we gave it the time. But short-sighted thinking still happens right now. But you have to believe in what it is, because if you really believe in it, stay or go, but do what it falls true to you. After that, I decided it's time for me just to share, because so many people have asked me, and some of you have been asking me, how did you get here? Because I am not the most likely candidate for being a Fortune 100 leader or 500 leader. So I decided I had to write a book to share how you can use what you've got to get what you want. And some of the things I told you earlier is from that book. And it's now in about 6 languages, which I feel pretty happy about. But this is the whole thing is, how do you balance your life? As you can imagine, that my life was at times not so balanced because my purpose was so strong and I was so purpose-driven that I wasn't doing that. And then after writing a book, I decided that I needed to start another company. Integrated healthcare company, Western and Eastern all together. And after a few years, I realized that my life was completely out of balance. I was making such a great impact on other people's lives that I forgot about my own life. Which is why brought me to write this book, The Happiness Choice. Taking everything I learned about life, about work, about what life purpose is about, and the 5 decisions we have to make about life, and how to balance them all so that you are happy and healthy. Because happiness and creativity and productivity are all intertwined. Gallup research in 2013 has shown that we lose $550 billion a year in lost productivity because of lack of well-being and unhappiness in the workplace, in America alone. So the 5 decisions we make in life, money and other means of exchange, which is what most people focus their lives on, to the extent that their bodies are damaged, their relationships suffer, they forget about any spiritual life, and they forget to give back. So if you know your life purpose and you know your balance, you can make it all happen together. And that's what my most current book is about. So remember your life mission, what makes you feel fulfilled, what makes you happy and at peace, what would you like to be remembered for? Is your life fulfilling your life purpose? Your work fulfilling your life purpose? And are you committed to fulfilling what it is that you're doing? Because if you're inspired by some great purpose, you find yourself in a great, new, wonderful world. dormant forces, faculties, and talents become alive, and you discover yourself to be a greater person by far than you ever dreamed yourself to be. I did not say this. A person who understands power and flexibility did. He's the founder of yoga. Power and flexibility. That's what we want to have. Because the career now is not like a ladder, it's a jungle gym. Sometimes you go sideways to go up. Sometimes you go down to go up. Just remember, do what calls to you and what is your passion and move forward that way. So the new lessons I've learned, I'm not limited by my immediate circumstances. With mission, I can accomplish what I really want. Living by my principles, I can achieve success in my business and my life. And I have the privilege to share my lessons with others. So now I'm going to ask you, what have you learned? What are you going to do with your life?